If you have ever watched Lisa perform, you already know there is something about her that is genuinely difficult to explain, something that goes beyond the dancing and beyond the visuals and beyond the obvious technical skill, something that feels personal even when she is on a stage in front of thousands of people, like she is performing for you specifically, like she is genuinely happy to be exactly where she is. And I think most people feel that about her, and then move on without ever really asking why. Welcome back to Iconic Her. Today we are studying Lalisa Manobal, and I want to make something clear from the beginning because I think it matters. This is not a video about how talented Lisa is. She is extraordinarily talented, but talent alone does not explain her. Plenty of extraordinarily talented people never become Lisa. What we're going to talk about today is something underneath the talent, something in how she thinks and how she approaches every situation she finds herself in, that specific quality that makes you feel good just watching her, and more importantly, what we can take from that into our own lives. So with that said, let us get into it. Born Pranpriya Manobal in Buram province in northeastern Thailand, she started dancing at 4 years old, competing and winning competitions across Thailand before she was a teenager, and by the time she auditioned for YG Entertainment in 2010, she had already built a foundation of genuine passion for what she did. Not the kind that comes from wanting to be famous, but the kind that comes from loving something so completely that you would do it even if nobody was watching. And out of 4,000 applicants at that audition, she was the only one who passed, which tells you something important right at the start of the story. And then she made the decision that most 14-year-olds would not have the courage to make. She moved to South Korea alone. She left her family, her friends, her language, her whole familiar world behind. And she walked into a training program where everything was new and nothing was easy. And what I want you to hold on to from this part of her story is not the difficulty of it, but the choice of it, because Lisa chose this. She wanted this badly enough to leave everything she knew for it, and what that period of her life required from her is something psychologists call acculturation, which is the process of adapting to a completely new cultural environment without losing who you actually are in the process. And most people who attempt it either assimilate so completely they lose themselves or resist so completely they never truly adapt. And Lisa did neither. She listened, she learned, she absorbed everything the new environment had to teach her while keeping the specific quality of herself that made her worth watching in the first place. Being a foreigner in K-pop was not a small thing when Lisa was coming up, because the industry had very specific ideas about what an idol should be and where they should come from, and as BLACKPINK was rising, Lisa faced real criticism about her accent, real skepticism about whether a non-Korean could truly belong in a Korean group, and real bias from within the industry itself. Because her company assigned her to participate in a reality survival show that required intense physical training, being the first K-pop idol ever to do something like that. And when you understand how carefully the industry manages idol image, how controlled and polished every public appearance is supposed to be, you understand what it meant for her to be publicly pushing her physical limits on national television, and she could have resisted it. She could have been resentful about it. She could have treated it as evidence of the way the industry saw her differently from the other idols, but she did not do any of those things. She did what she consistently does, which is give it everything she had and find a way to turn the obstacle into an opportunity. And the psychological principle underneath that response is one of the most powerful ones her story illustrates, which is that your circumstances are largely outside your control, but your relationship with your circumstances is entirely inside it. And Lisa built a relationship with her circumstances that refused to let any of them become the reason she showed up as less than her best. Something that most people notice about Lisa, but never properly name, is the specific way she switches, because the woman you see on stage, fierce, controlled, commanding, almost intimidatingly precise, is genuinely different from the woman you see the moment the performance ends. The one who laughs easily, who is warm and playful and soft, who seems genuinely delighted by small things. And what is fascinating about that is that both versions are completely real. Neither one is a performance, and neither one is the mask hiding the other. They are two genuine expressions of the same person operating in different contexts, and psychologists call this contextual identity, the ability to shift how you show up based on what the situation actually requires without losing the thread of who you actually are underneath either version. And it is one of the rarest and most sophisticated psychological skills a person can develop, because most of us collapse into one mode and stay there. We are either always performing or always soft, always pushing or always resting, and Lisa moves between those states with a fluency that most people spend years trying to develop. And what that teaches us is something genuinely useful for our own lives, which is that you are not required to be one thing all the time, that the fierce version of you and the gentle version of you are not in conflict, they are both yours. And knowing when to bring which one is not inconsistency, it is emotional intelligence at its highest level, and there is a practical side to this worth naming as well, which is that by leaving her intense stage persona on the stage, she protects her own peace. She does not carry the performance into her private life and burn herself out trying to be on all the time. And that specific discipline of knowing when to turn the intensity on and when to let it rest is what allows her to sustain a level of output that would exhaust most people within a year. Before Lisa could speak fluent Korean, she was already communicating something that language could not fully carry because she was expressing herself through dance and through presence and through the specific quality of attention she brought to every room she walked into. And what that period of her training teaches us is something that most people in unfamiliar environments never figure out, which is that charisma is not primarily verbal. It does not live in the words you choose or the language you speak. It lives in your body language, your energy, the way you make other people feel when you are standing next to them. And Lisa proved this completely because she was scoring top marks in evaluations and commanding the attention of everyone in the training room before she could properly hold a conversation in Korean, which means the thing that made her magnetic was operating independently of language entirely, and the psychological principle underneath that is called nonverbal mastery, the understanding that presence is communicated through how you move, how you listen, how you carry yourself in space, and that those signals reach people before your words do and stay with them after your words are forgotten. And the second thing she understood that is worth naming is the difference between seeking validation and seeking mastery, because the K-pop industry is one of the most critical and most comparative environments imaginable. Constant evaluation, constant ranking, constant feedback about what you are not doing well enough, and Lisa maintained her mental stamina through all of that, not by looking for approval from the people evaluating her, but by focusing on the specific craft of getting better, by making the standard internal rather than external. And the women who last longest in any competitive environment are almost always the ones who made that shift, who stopped measuring themselves against other people's opinions and started measuring themselves against their own previous best. If you zoom out on Lisa's whole story, from a small city in Thailand to the most followed K-pop idol on earth, from a training room in Seoul to the Victoria's Secret runway to the White Lotus to running her own company, the thing that connects all of it is not the talent. The talent was always there. The thing that connects all of it is the specific psychological intelligence she brought to every situation she found herself in, the ability to adapt without losing herself, the refusal to let bias become an excuse, the duality of fierce and gentle held in perfect balance, the understanding that presence speaks before words do, and the decision to measure herself against her own standard rather than anyone else's opinion. And I think the reason her story resonates so deeply with so many people across so many cultures is that it is actually a very human story underneath all the fame and the music videos and the luxury brand campaigns. It is the story of someone who figured out very early that the only person whose standard actually matters is your own, and then built everything from that foundation. And the question she leaves each of us with is not how do I become Lisa? The question is what would change in my own life if I started holding myself to an internal standard rather than waiting for external validation to tell me I am good enough. Stay iconic.